Hey guys, welcome to another video. In this video I want to give you some insight how the weapons in Bullets and More are working. Right now we are in the Unity editor because the game is based on the Unity engine, and you see a MP5 here. If you click on it you see a lot of stuff is going on here, and if you look at the right you see all the components attached to it. For the MP5 you see there's a closed bolt component. That makes a lot of sense because the MP5 is firing from a closed bolt. Of course there also is an open bolt component and a lot of other components, but for the MP5 the closed bolt is what we need. There also are a lot of values as you can see here, and yeah, some of those are only used internally, and some of those also make no sense at all for this specific weapon, but are due to the class design available anyway. So the weapon ID is the MP5. That is for instance used in multiplayer when you are being shot and you died. You know what weapon the killer used because the game knows exactly what weapon has been used due to the weapon identification number that makes it very easy for the game to know the weapon. Yeah, the current state is what the current state of the weapon is. There's a very basic state machine that is ensuring that everything is happening in the right order. It only knows about idle, slide forward, slide backward, and hammer. That are the only states all of the weapons now, and those are very basic but ensure that everything is happening at the right time, because yeah, you want to chamber around not when the weapon is idling, but you want to do it when the slide has moved back and is about to move forward again, because that is for the closed bolt weapon when it picks a new round from the magazine. For the open bolt weapons that might be a bit different again, because they do not pick the round when it is moved back, because it is on the fly kind of picking the round as it moves forward. So that is also a reason why those classes are different in some ways. And yeah, there are also some other variables like the pickup one here. That is a class that is responsible for being able to pick up the weapon. There's a magazine manager. The magazine manager got some subclasses like an internal magazine manager and an external magazine manager. The MP5 got an external magazine, so it is using the external magazine manager. And if you think about like the shotgun, it got a tube that is filled with rounds, so it kind of has an internal magazine. Yeah, the muzzle is a muzzle that tells the game where the bullet needs to start, and also has some other stuff to it. The weapon effect is responsible to trigger some of the sounds and vibrations and all that stuff, the effects. And the fire modes for this gun are full automatic, semi-automatic. There also are some animation values because the fire mode selector is a part of the weapon that you can actually see. It is here. The game itself is not using any predefined animations at all. Everything is driven in code. So what you see here is an animation class that I wrote, and it is responsible for animating the right value for the right fire mode. There are a lot of options to it that are required to express the complexity of a firearm, because some parts do move only at some specific times, and there's a lot to it. So what else we got? You can toggle on if you can extract the magazine manually, like on the one SMG, there's a recoil value for the linear recoil, for the rotational recoil. Of course, it needs a damage value. Buffer rate shots is an internal used variable that is required for the networking part of the game to reduce the network load a bit. Some weapons can punch through multiple targets. It got no bipod, of course. There also is a delay recoil system that will be used for some future weapons that can fire multiple rounds but only recoil when they have done the firing burst. The slide is interesting. That is actually the charging handle for this weapon that you can see here. That's what you pull back and let go to chamber around. It's a bit more complex than this. That's why I got a multi-interaction component that allows you also to pull it back and rotate it or move it up to lock it back in place on this little notch like this. So that also is in the game and driven by those components. What you also want for this is if it is locked back like this and you slap it, you want it to fall down and move forward again. That is made possible by the velocity animation input that detects that there has been a velocity over this component and triggers the action to actually move it down from the notch and allow the charging handle to move forward again. One thing to notice on the MP5 is that when you chamber the round and you fire a round, this charging handle does not move back again. On a pistol, if you fire a round, the pressure puts it back and forward again to eject the rounds. That makes a lot of sense, and this is also happening on the other side of this gun for the ejection port. That is this component that moves it back and forth to eject the rounds, but it is not connected to the charging handle anymore when you chamber the round. So when you fire this, it will not go back anymore. That's why you see a 0.15 value for the visualization value here. That ensures that it only is moving a tiny bit back. That is to mimic some vibration. I guess nobody ever saw that happening, and it is probably a bit of pointless, but it is still in there that this is just a tiny bit going back and forth to mimic that vibration. But as for the charging handle itself, it is not going back fully, because that is not what this gun would do in real life, and that's why it is also not doing it in the game. What else we got? We got damage fall off. So a lot of values that are being used for balancing all those weapons that are in the game. Also the chambering of a round is driven by some of those animation components. Then the chambering end pose, that is actually where the round ends when it has been chambered or is being ejected again. There are a lot of toggles that you can toggle on and off. So this weapon is a blowback weapon because when you actually are firing this weapon, the pressure of the fired round will drive this ejector back and eject the round, and in this process also chamber a new round. That's the blowback. And it also could be that it only is blown back and stops here. That's what the other value spring slide is for, this one here. This allows the weapon to go forward again because it tells the game there is a spring in it that should make it move forward again when it moved back. Because otherwise it would just blow back and stay here, but we want to make it go forward again, of course. Then what else we got? Yeah, the other values are not really necessary for this weapon. We got the slide speed, that is telling the game how fast all this moving back and forth should be happening. And since all those chambering are really happening in the game, that also automatically, decides about how fast this weapon can cycle. So the speed set up here, I actually benchmarked it as making the weapon fire, I think, at the real fire rate. If you make it faster, it will go even faster, and on some of the weapons there are much higher values, on some of the weapons there are much lower values. So all that is being used to make the weapon as realistic as possible. Yeah, that is it for the most part of the closed ball component. But yeah, a bolt only wouldn't allow you to fire any gun. That's why the next component is called a trigger group component, and it is responsible for the trigger, of course. So the trigger is this thing that you pull. Also got an animation, so it also is animated when you pull it. It will, rotate. So you see that you pulled it. There also is a hammer that falls. It is an internal hammer here, you don't see it, that's why it only is like an empty object. Yeah, what else we got? We got a trigger type. Some weapons in the game are even single action weapons, like the flare gun, that you need to cock before you can fire it. This weapon is a double action only weapon. Oops. So, and yeah, that tells the game how to handle that. There also is a striker action that's used for some pistols again. So you can change the behavior of the trigger here. The fire mode is what it is currently in. It starts in full automatic, that's why it is set to full automatic. And there also is a burst fire mode that the trigger group supports, but is not being used for the MP5. Then there are a lot of other values that you can change. The hammer also got a speed that it falls. So if you make that faster, the hammer will fall even faster, and also influence the cycling speed of this weapon. The need relax, the need pickup relax are values that are being used internally, so that when you pick the weapon up, you use the trigger to pick it up, and the game knows, okay, you picked it up, and you need to relax the trigger again, because if that wouldn't be in the game and you would pick up the weapon, it would fire a shot when you picked it up. So that is what is needed to ensure that the other relax value is being used when you are firing in semi-automatic. So the game knows you relax the trigger and it can fire another shot and another shot until you relax the trigger. That obviously doesn't make any sense for the full automatic mode, because you don't want to relax the trigger, but you want to keep it pressed until the magazine is empty, for instance. Then there's a value that tells the trigger group if the burst fire can be interrupted. For some weapons, if you pull the trigger and a burst is fired, if you let go, you can interrupt the burst. And for other weapons, if you start the burst firing, it will just keep going until the fire burst is over, so that is driving that. There also is a trigger-based fire mode, slide speed fire modes that are, for instance, used for the AUG 3, A3, that depending on the state of the trigger switches the fire mode between semi-automatic and fully automatic. So that also is done in the game. The rigid body is a Unity component that drives the physics for this object. Now we are to the pickup class that allows you to actually pick this gun up, because all this is very nice, but if you cannot pick it up, you cannot even use the gun. So that's what the pickup class is for. It got a main grip component, an alternative grip, This is the main grip. It also got that grip component that got a lot of information that it needs to being able to work as a grip. Yeah, the colliders that are responsible to allow the collision of this weapon. There are also some offsets so that when you are holding the gun, it is in a position that you can actually use it. Some inventory settings. Yeah, this is a weapon effects class. It is only a couple of strings that are telling what sounds are being used, but internally it also triggers some of the vibrations because it knows about the state of the gun and all that. Then the game is using photon networking for the multiplayer part. That's what this photon view on this gun is for. For that we also got another class that is ensuring that the pickup class is correctly being synchronized over the network. We got a networking class for the weapon itself. We got the buffered shots class that is helping to reduce the network load, and there's a default attachment class that sets up some of the attachments that should be, like in gun game, being default attached to this gun. Yeah, you might think we are done now, but we also got a lot of other stuff, like the shell ejector class that is telling the ejection speed of the ejected round and the rotation and at which point the shell should be ejected. There also, of course, is a muzzle that is being shown here by the line. Some weapons like this one is also capable of using a silencer, so we got a volume, a trigger volume to detect the attachment of a silencer and a lot of that stuff. Then what else we got? We of course also got an attachment rail here that also is being driven by an attachment point script that tells the game how it should handle that. And what else we got? Muzzle. Some particle effects for the muzzle, of course, for the flash that you can see here. Also driven by a lot of subcomponents. There also are some stuff to prevent people from cheating, so there's this volume that also detects if the gun is in a wall, so you cannot fire it through walls, and a lot of those exploits are handled by that blocking detection class. Yeah, then we almost forgot about the magazine manager. That is this component. What you see here is another collision volume that is only active when the magazine is inserted. And yeah, we got a caliber 9mm here for this weapon. There is an insertion pose, that is this bubble here, that tells the game where it expects the magazine and detects it. And yeah, this weapon also got a tactical release position. So if you slam a magazine into this trigger, it will actually also drop the magazine out of the gun. It is not being communicated a lot in the game because I think it is not so important. But it also is a feature of this weapon that is being represented correctly in the game. Yeah. So as you can see, there is really a lot of stuff going on for of a weapon that you might think is not so complex, but yeah, there's a lot of stuff happening. Here we are in the indoor range, and now I can show you in the game how the components are working. Yeah, we get the MP5 again. You can operate the charging handle. you also see the ejection port open and close. Like I said, you can move it back and up, take a magazine, insert it, and slap on it. And we are loaded. You can toggle the fire mode. And as you can see, when firing, it only moves a tiny bit to simulate the vibration, but it would never move completely back and forth, because this handle is only for charging. As you can see how we can eject those cartridges until we are empty. And they are also ejected here. And like I said, you also can do a tactical reload, like that. Yeah, that's basically all the stuff we discussed in the previous part of the video. I also want to show you some of the pistols here. We got the trigger that also drives the hammer, as you can see. If you move the slide, it also is connected to the hammer that now, however, stays back and is cocked due to the slide. That, yeah, gives it no other way than makes the same movement, and that is then held back. Now if we insert a magazine, we can see how the chambering goes. We also can eject the round. You see it still got the bullet in it, but if we fire that round, oops, you can see it is now empty. Because, yeah, we fired it. If we now look carefully at this thing, that is the slide lock, that is not engaged yet, but if we fire, you see now the slide lock is engaged. If we try to pull it back, that doesn't work because the slide lock is in our way. If we now eject a magazine, insert a fresh one, it also would work with an empty magazine, but yeah, a full magazine makes more sense because it actually makes the whole process of reloading a lot faster, because now the slide lock is engaged, but if we pull it back, the slide, you see it automatically is not engaged anymore because the pressure of the empty magazine is gone. And this weapon, this is a FG42. It is a very popular, or maybe not so popular weapon because it is very rare. But yeah, if you pull it back, the bolt stays back, and if you fire, it drops because now it is firing from an open bolt. So what it does is it takes the cartridge from the magazine and moves it into the chamber, and there is a firing pin on this thing which automatically ignites the cartridge when it drops forward. So let's do that. We now insert a magazine, we pull it back, and you see we can see all those rounds. And now if we fire, it fires all those rounds. The interesting thing about this gun, however, is now it is in fully automatic mode, as you can see on the fire selector here. If we put it to semi-automatic, it will now behave different if you watch closely, because now it is firing from a closed bolt. If we now put it into full automatic again, the first shot will still be from a closed bolt, but then it stays open again. So that's a lot more complexity for this specific gun. There also is that bipod. Yeah, so I think that gave you some insight into how the guns work internally and from a coding perspective. And I hope you did enjoy this video and saw some of the stuff that you maybe have not been aware of. And I hope it was interesting. And yeah, thanks for watching. If you got some more questions, feel free to ask me and I will be happy to answer those. So, see you.